It's the day before Thanksgiving or Christmas, and you think you don't have enough time to make sourdough dinner rolls. Well, you actually do have enough time to make these, my new favorite sourdough dinner rolls. They're light and fluffy on the inside with just a touch of sweetness without being overly heavy or dense. Here's how to make them. Starting sometime in the afternoon, take 25 grams of leftover sourdough starter out of the fridge. I'll include a whole baking timeline for this recipe on my website, just for your convenience. To your sourdough starter jar, add 50 grams of water, and then stir the water and starter around a little bit, and then add 50 grams of bread flour. This is the same bread flour you'll be using for the dough, so you just use the same flour the whole time. Once you've fed the starter, stir everything together to combine, then adjust the rubber band, pop the lid on loosely, and let your starter rise at room temperature for about 4 to 8 hours, however long it takes for your starter to double in size. Then sometime later in the evening, when your starter has doubled in size, you can make your dough. To a mixing bowl or the bowl of a stand mixer, add 200 grams of water, and then add 50 grams of whole milk. Next, you'll need to add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. That'll just add a little bit of richness and flavor to the dough. And then add 10 grams of white sugar for just a touch of sweetness. My old recipe for sourdough dinner rolls used twice as much butter and about 5 times as much sugar. I now prefer this version because the rolls are still sweet without being heavy or dense. For the last couple ingredients, add 10 grams of salt. Then get out your active and risen sourdough starter that has doubled in size, and add 100 grams of active and risen sourdough starter to the mixing bowl. Then whatever's left over in the sourdough starter jar, you can place back into the fridge for the next time you want to bake sourdough. Then stir everything together just to combine the liquid ingredients first before you add the flour. And then add 450 grams of plain white bread flour. I'm using the King Arthur brand of bread flour, the one in the blue bag. Now it's time to knead the dough. So option 1 is to do it by hand. Stir the ingredients together with a spoon until a rough dough forms, and then knead the dough on your countertop for 8 minutes. Option 2 is to use a stand mixer with a dough hook attachment, which is what I'm doing today. You can use the dough hook to stir the ingredients together on low speed for a minute or two until the dough comes together just as a rough dough. Once the dough comes together and starts to unstick from the sides of the bowl, scrape down the sides of the bowl just to clean it up a little bit, and then continue the kneading process in the stand mixer, but this time on medium-low speed, around speed 2 in my KitchenAid, and let it knead for 8 minutes. And after 8 minutes, the dough should be fully kneaded, the gluten should be well developed, and the dough should be holding together well at this point. Transfer the dough from the mixing bowl onto your unfloured kitchen counter, and then form the dough into a smooth ball with your hands. Your dough is now ready for the first rise, or the bulk fermentation. Now the dough is going to be rising overnight, so I like to let it rise in a big mixing bowl or the bowl of a stand mixer, just so it has plenty of room to rise and double or triple in size. So take a large mixing bowl and grease it with just a little bit of butter or oil, and then place the kneaded ball of dough into the mixing bowl, and then cover up the bowl with either a lid, a sheet of plastic wrap, or a damp kitchen towel. You'll need a cover that keeps the dough fairly airtight so that it doesn't dry out during its long overnight rise. Speaking of which, let the dough rise overnight at room temperature for about 6 to 10 hours or until it doubles in size. And the next morning, your dough should be doubled in size and it's ready to divide and shape into individual rolls. To divide and shape the dough, take the risen dough out of the mixing bowl and place it onto your unfloured kitchen counter. Flour the top of the dough with just a little bit of bread flour and gently press the dough down into a flat disc with your fingertips. This amount of dough comfortably makes 12 medium-sized rolls or 16 smaller dinner rolls. So divide the dough using a bench scraper or a chef's knife into either 12 or 16 pieces. This time I divided the dough into 12 pieces, which if you're using a scale should be roughly 70 grams each. Here's the real simple shaping method I use to transform one of these into a ball of dough. Just take one of the triangles of dough, hold it upside down so the sticky side is facing up, and then stretch and fold the dough until it forms a ball. You just keep going around the dough, stretching and folding, holding each one of those edges of dough underneath your thumb. Once your dough ball looks like this, with all the seams meeting in the middle there, you can flip the dough ball over onto the counter with the seam side facing down, and then using your hand like a claw on top of the dough, roll the dough ball around to just smooth out all of the edges. The seam should pretty much disappear, and you're left with a very smooth, round ball of dough. Then just repeat that shaping process with all 12 or 16 dough balls until they are all shaped. Now they're ready to transfer into your baking pan. You can use almost any type of baking pan that you want, but I usually use a round metal pan. This is a 10-inch pizza pan actually, but you could use a 9-inch or 10-inch round cake pan or an 8x8-inch square pan. Any of those options will work. You can grease your pan with butter or oil to make it non-stick, but what I like to actually do is crinkle up a pre-cut sheet of parchment paper, and then I uncrinkle it and use that parchment paper to line my circular pan. The parchment fits better that way and ends up looking a little bit rustic. Once your pan is greased or lined with parchment paper, arrange the 12 or 16 rolls evenly throughout the pan. You don't really need to leave a space in between each of the dinner rolls. It's okay if they're touching a little bit. The rolls will then bake up together in the oven and they'll become pull-apart style dinner rolls. The last thing you should do before letting your rolls proof is melt 1 tablespoon of butter in the microwave or on the stovetop, and then brush the tops of the dinner rolls with that melted butter using a pastry brush. This is an optional step, but it keeps the rolls from drying out while they rise, and it gives them a little extra flavor. Now the dinner rolls are ready for their final proof. So cover the pan of rolls up with a sheet of plastic wrap or a damp kitchen towel. If you're using plastic wrap, by the way, the butter on top of the rolls will help keep the rolls from sticking to the plastic. Let the dinner rolls proof or rise at room temperature for 4 to 8 hours or until they roughly double in size. Then 30 minutes before you're ready to bake your rolls, preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't really need a steam tray or a baking stone in the oven. You'll just slide the pan directly onto the center oven rack. After my rolls had been rising for a little over 4 hours, it looked like they were completely doubled in size, and I was happy with them. I was ready to bake. Ideally, if you shape your rolls in the morning like I'm doing, you'll be ready to bake your rolls before your big holiday meal. Now before you bake the rolls, it's really nice to brush them with an egg wash. That gives the rolls a shiny, glossy top. There are a lot of egg wash variations that I've used before, but the one I'm liking right now is 1 egg whisked together with 1 tablespoon of whole milk. So whisk together 1 tablespoon of milk with 1 egg, and then brush that mixture on top of your dinner rolls with a pastry brush. When you've got full coverage on the rolls, get out some flaky sea salt or just some regular kosher salt like I've got here, and sprinkle the dinner rolls with just a pinch of salt. That will essentially give the dinner rolls a pop of flavor on the crust that tastes really good. Now it's time to bake. Move these rolls directly to your oven, slide them onto the center rack, and bake the rolls for 20 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. After those first 20 minutes are up, rotate the pan to the other side just to get even browning on all of the rolls, and then lower the heat of the oven down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and continue baking for 20 to 25 more minutes until the rolls are as golden brown as you want them to be. Here are my rolls after 25 minutes. Now remove your rolls from the oven, and just like before we baked them, we're going to do one last final touch here. Just melt 1 tablespoon of butter this time and brush the melted butter on top of the rolls to finish them. This will give them a nice glossy appearance, and the butter will give them extra flavor. Now your rolls are ready to cool, and you've freed up some oven space just in case you're cooking anything else for your holiday dinner. Let your rolls cool in the pan for at least 30 minutes, and then whenever you're ready to serve your rolls, all you have to do is take them out of the pan, pull the rolls apart, and place them in whatever serving basket or bowl you're serving them in. And depending on when you're serving these, the rolls still might even be a little bit warm from the oven. Now for the taste test. As far as texture goes, I really love how these rolls have golden brown crunchy tops, but the sides are still really soft and fluffy from those pull apart edges where the rolls baked up into each other. And as you can see, the insides remain really soft and fluffy. They really are light, they're not dense and gummy in any way, but they're not so light and airy that they're flavorless. Sometimes store-bought rolls can be kind of flavorless and airy, but these have an amazingly complex flavor that is slightly tangy and slightly sweet. But it's just the right hint of sweetness. It's not so much that it's going to overpower your rich Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner. I usually enjoy my rolls with a slather of butter on one side and some jam on the other side. That looks just about right to me. While I'm enjoying this roll, I want to let you know that you can find the written recipe at grantbakes.com along with a baking timeline that'll show you how you can fit this into your holiday baking schedule. If you do make these rolls, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.